Welcome to another edition of Five Star Pod Splash. I am your host. On We are going to be going over the top 10 Sega Saturn video games that was voted on by the people of Game Haven and Rareform Gaming, and a couple other social media groups that I had to get involved as there were a lot of tiebreakers that needed to be held. So I went to other groups to get their votes. That way, it wouldn't come from the same voting pool that the other two groups voted on. What I did was I took all the results from both of these groups and I added up how many votes each game got, and then from there we went on. So before I get into the top 10 Sega Saturn video games, first I got 5 honorable mentions that did not make the cut. The first being Rayman. This is actually the very first. This right here, to me, I feel like definitely deserves an honorable mention because Rayman is like very known in the gaming community, and this is where he made his debut, was actually on the Sega Saturn. I know Sega Saturn wasn't a super popular console, so a lot of people probably didn't own a Sega Saturn. I'm starting to feel a little vague if I actually had a Sega Saturn myself. I want to say I had every game system other than a Neo Geo. I had a 3DO. I had I have the Sega CD. So I want to say I had the Sega Saturn too. But honorable mention number 5 is Rayman. Going in at honorable mention number 4, we got Darkstalkers, Vampire Savior. It came out in March 3rd of 1995. This is another one of those fighting games from Capcom. Like, I really love the art style in Darkstalkers. Enough cannot be said about their art style. Like, they nailed it with the wolf, Frankenstein, the vampires, the succubus, the vampire hunter, Dimitri. Man, they had so many dope characters on Vampire Savior, Darkstalkers Revenge. Definitely deserved an honorable mention. Honorable mention number 3 is Street Fighter Alpha 3. And interesting thing about the Street Fighter Alpha 3 game is that this actually came out right around the transition of the Dreamcast just coming out. So it actually came out for the Dreamcast initially, and but it was only for the Dreamcast in Japan, and then we got the game for both versions, one for the Sega Saturn and then the one for the Dreamcast. And I guess this is one of the first times that a game actually had that. I guess no, Mortal Kombat did that recently too, Mortal Kombat 2. But yeah, there's certain games that they put them on both consoles because not everybody switched over to the new console yet. So that way they double their profit by having it on 2 different consoles. Honorable mention number 2 is Marvel Superheroes. This was a very fun game. You got the gems give you a little extra boost and everything. It kind of separated itself from, like, it got its template from the X-Men Children of the Atom, but it separated itself more with the gems. It had a dope villain up in there, man. You can play with Doctor Doom, Thanos, like long before they were like pop culture icons and everything like that. So this game, definitely the Proton Cannon, definitely got to give it its props and its honorable mention. Coming in with the last honorable mention before we get into the top 10 voted on. I'm mad this game did not make the top 10. This game was actually my number 4 game in my personal top 10 list, and that is Super Puzzle Fighter 2. This game was one of the funnest puzzle games ever. This is the best puzzle game. So if you got this, for this not to make top 10 makes no sense. I guess people really ain't from that Tetris era or whatnot, because this game definitely deserved to be in the top 10 in my opinion. So we're going to get into the top 10 games. Coming in at number 10. I'm kind of surprised this one made it, but I'm happy it did because it definitely was a fun game. I think it made my top 10. Yeah, it beat out my number 4 overall. So with the votes, and that's Pocket Fighter. So Pocket Fighter, coming from the Super Puzzle Fighter, genre series. It was the Chibi Street Fighter. This time it's franchises bringing in Darkstalkers, and then you got the girl from the Street Fighter 3 game in there as well. You got the witch, and man, it was just a dope, fun game to play, man. Like I've fighter so long that with Super Gym Fighters, pretty much this game came out in 1997, and it was pretty much it was just a super fun, like, it didn't take itself too seriously. It came out on June 13th. Oh no, that's the wrong date. I'm over here back. I'm gonna have to edit that out. It came out on July 9th of 1998 for the Sega Saturn. So yeah, this game was a real fun game to play, but I'm surprised it made the list because, man, like, I'm surprised Puzzle Fighter didn't make the list. Like, as much as I did like this fighting game, like, I thought Puzzle Fighter, I would definitely swap those two out. My personal opinion. Coming in at number 9, like, this game was one of the huge marketing points when Sega Saturn was, I want to say when Sega Saturn was coming out, and if not, it was like one of those big hits for the Sega Saturn, and that was Knights into the Darkness. Knights of the Darkness is a 1996 action game that was developed by the Sonic team. So the same people that made Sonic the Hedgehog is the people that were working on this. I guess they were trying to branch out and make a new mascot for the Sega Saturn, someone different from Sonic. And then it kind of, while I'll say like it didn't, he didn't have like the long-standing success that Sonic the Hedgehog had. I will say that for the Sega Saturn, he was the mascot in a sense that there is not a say there, huh? Yeah, that was a plan. But yeah, yo, but it with the Sega Saturn, and maybe that's why the Sega Saturn was not such a successful game console, is because it didn't have Sonic at the forefront. He wasn't the main focal point in the marketing and the gaming at this point. The people that make the Sonic game basically took a break to try something new, and that was this. And while it did somewhat good, it was one of their bigger hits. It just wasn't Sonic level, and that's probably what led to its downfall ultimately, and why you don't see a lot more Knight in anything. You don't see him in anything. Like, this was a game I personally didn't play. I did see a lot of commercials and stuff about it on TV and everything. It didn't make my top 10, but when I do these, I'm not biased. A lot of my favorite stuff doesn't even make it. Some of my favorite stuff gets voted so low. I'm just like, y'all are tripping. I don't know what y'all were playing. Y'all had some trash games because, man, like, my game should be number one. I'm just joking. But anyway, coming in at number 8 on the list, we got Virtual Fighter 2. Like, Virtual Fighter 2, bro. Like, that's what I just was talking about with my personal favorite games being so low on the list. Like, it's disrespectful. Like, I'm looking at my top 10 list for this game. This is my number 3 game of all time for the system, and y'all got it overall ranked at number 8. I'm surprised it even made the list. How crazy some of these lists are at times, But Virtual Fighter 2 was like really one of those first 3D fighting games that like really, man, like the first Virtual Fighter, that should have got an honorable mention since it didn't make the list. I don't think it made the list. I don't think it's in the rest of the list. But Virtual Fighter 1, man, back in the arcade, Virtual Fighter, like that's how I could tell. I could tell who's from that arcade era and who's not from some of these votes, because man, like, this was from that arcade era. Virtual Fighter 1 and Virtual Fighter 2 in the arcade was it for a minute, my dude. So like, Virtual Fighter 2, I'm just glad it made the list. Coming in at number 8, my personal number 3, Virtual Fighter 2, man. Let's see here. Coming in at number 7, we got Street Fighter Alpha 2. This is what I'm talking about, man. This is my personal This is my personal number 2, and y'all got it at number 7. I can't win with y'all, man. I can't win with y'all. Y'all be disrespecting my favorite games, man. What games were y'all playing, bruh? Were you? I know for a fact y'all weren't at the arcade, bruh, because Street Fighter Alpha 2 at the arcade, bruh. Like, all right, Mortal Kombat, when it came out, it was whooping Street Fighter's ass for a minute. The Street Fighter came out first, so it was already doing its thing. It was already king. And then Mortal Kombat came out of nowhere with the fatalities and everything, and they had its run. You know what I'm saying? Then Street Fighter, it tried to fight back. It tried to introduce new characters and everything, but Mortal Kombat still had its foot on its neck. You know, Killer Instinct had one quick little run Super Nintendo, and then it went right back to Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. But Mortal Kombat had that edge until Street Fighter Alpha came out. And when Street Fighter Alpha 2 came out, that's when Street Fighter took back its motherfucking throne, dog. And for Street Fighter to be ranked number 7 just don't make no sense to me, dog. Street Fighter Alpha 2, man, like this is the whole style, the animation. It's still to my day its favorite animation out of all of them would be the Street Fighter Alpha. Dope ass artist who did that. Like, man, his style is just ridiculous, bro. Like, uh, so man, I see someone saying it's all about Lunar. You know, Lunar should have got an honorable mention too, because I don't think Lunar made that it didn't. You know, I'm looking at the Sega Saturn list and I'm like, oh, I'm looking at the wrong Sega Saturn list. I was looking at my own Sega Saturn list. I was gonna say it's all fighting games, but that's just my personal. You know what? This is what I'm talking about with the disrespect, and this definitely had to come a lot from the Rare Forum gaming community. They're voting on this one. Really put this one in because it didn't do so well in the other group. But that is Mega Man X4. Oh man, like you know, I rock with Mega Man heavy, but I'm Street Fighter's my favorite in the Capcom franchise. Mega Man being a number 2 behind it. You know what I'm saying? That right? Any good series under that umbrella, you know. But Street Fighter, oh, Final Fight as well, you know. The Mega Man X4, what's up, man? Why you didn't call me last night? Mega Man X4, man, coming in at number 6 on the list. I know you drove my shit to the casino last night. Coming in at number 6, you know, we got Mega Man X4, man. Let's see here. Coming in at number 5 on the list. I'm gonna start my way down that way. Let me see here. I'm looking at the wrong list. Coming in at number 5, we got WrestleMania, the arcade game. Man, you know, now this I will say, y'all got this one right. All right. You know what? Hey, that's exactly where it was ranked on my top 10 as well. It was number 5. So we actually agreed on one thing, and that was that WrestleMania, the arcade game, was number 5 best Sega Saturn game. Man, this game was dope. It was not unlike any other WWF wrestling game ever up to this point. And you know, until recently, that new game they got is somewhat similar, where it's just like it just completely deviates from pro wrestling, and you know they all got special powers and all that extra stuff, and you know the graphics was ridiculous at this time, man. The roster was stupid crazy. The roster was stupid crazy. We had Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Razor Ramon, Undertaker. Like, man, this game was ridiculous, man. So salute for y'all having this in y'all top 10, because it definitely got in mine at the same place, actually. That's the only thing I believe we're probably going to have in common would be that one right there. Coming in at number 4 on the list is X-Men Children of the Atom, man. Like, I'm surprised. Y'all, I ain't gonna lie, man. The Sega Saturn list ain't too bad. Like, X-Men Children of the Atom, like Sega Saturn really was like basically just jacking all of the like video games out of the arcade like a couple months after they like were in the arcade, you know, from the King of Fighters to pretty much anything that was out in the arcade, they was snatching up like a couple months later. Like almost end of the arcade era, which just had a dope roster. A lot of the people in this roster you would not see in a fighting game again for a minute. Not like Marvel versus Capcom 2 with Juggernaut, Spiral, and Marvel superheroes. But this really took the engine. It took the Street Fighter Alpha engine. I feel like it speeded up a little bit, added a little bit of enhancements and improvements to certain aspects of that, and then from here spawned the Marvel superheroes game that got an honorable mention earlier on in the review. This game was very fun, man. Me being a artist and also X-Men aficionado since 1991. Like my very first comic book was X-Men issue 1 from Jim Lee, and I've been X-Men heavy ever since from the Fox cartoon. Like before the cartoon came out, like I was hyped for the cartoon because I had the comic books already. So like I was like already up on game, like one of those day one when there wasn't a lot of like, literally like first. I ain't even gonna go there, but anyway, X-Men. I'm glad y'all got that in y'all top 10, man. Because like being a comic book nerd, like I mean, I guess now Marvel's so mainstream that people might do. I genuinely think this ain't like on some Marvel bandwagon. I think it's because people legitimately played this game and enjoyed this game. Like it was a dope game, and X-Men ran the '90s, so like I definitely wouldn't put it past like the Marvel MCU influence on the voting polls. Coming in at number 3 was Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2 was that on my list? Mortal Kombat 2 was not on my top 10 list. I'm sorry. Like Mortal Kombat 2, like not for the Sega Saturn at least. Maybe when it was on the Sega, I believe, but on the Sega Saturn 2, nah, man. By this time, Street Fighter Alpha was back doing its numbers and killing things. But y'all still put Mortal Kombat. So I was seeing these gaming groups I'm in. I don't like this, but it's a pro Mortal Kombat gaming group that we are in, because this is almost every gaming system up to this point. You guys have outranked Street Fighter with Mortal Kombat, and I don't like that, being a Street Fighter guy. You know what I'm saying? But that is the general consensus. I can't even talk right now. That's the general consensus. So, man, nah, bro. Street Fighter's the OG, nigga, man. Street Fighter, nigga, all they got is fatalities, my nigga. Street Fighter Alpha. No, they don't got more characters than Street Fighter. They don't got more characters, bro. They don't do more moves, my nigga. They really don't, my nigga. They got fatalities, bro. They got fatalities and they got the pit. They break bones like they did it. They did it. Street Fighter is like where everybody got they birthed them all, man. Street Fighter is.
I would say that, but that shit ain't better than Mortal Kombat, dog.
I don't like about I like with Street Fighter. What keeps me a Street Fighter fan over Mortal Kombat is the control button. I like how you got to be smooth with your controls to where Mortal Kombat is like you got to press like down on the button. You can't just slide it from like left right. Like you got to literally push in the button. Like that's gonna like fuck your fingers up having to push down on the D-pad instead where you could just like press down with pressure and slide across. Like that was always like the thing that kept me more Street Fighter than Mortal Kombat was its fluidity. Like well, Mortal Kombat, I'd be pushing the button. I might slip up and not push the button correctly, you know what I'm saying? And then miss the fatality and all that. You know what I'm saying? You got to be in a very specific range to hit the fatality. And it's like rushing you. If you don't hit it in time, then you just don't get it. So I don't know. Like I rock with Mortal Kombat. But yeah, even with the fatality, even while I love the fatality, it's like it forces you to have like their book, which is a smart strategy marketing wise, but it forces you to have a book or like to go look up everybody's fatalities, and then like you gotta pause the game right before you kill the person. Hold up, I gotta see how to do the fatality. Like man, because they don't give you enough time. They don't give you enough time to after you win the fight. They give you like 10 seconds, like you better hurry up, get to that spot and hit it and enter that command. Like you got a very short dun dun dun. It's like, yo, let me with Street Fighter, you could save up that bar, you could build that bar up and then hit your finish at any time. But the sweet thing is you could get hit with that and you could still make the craziest of comebacks. Like, I don't know. I just feel like Street Fighter was more competitive with the combos, the juggling, the animation style. You know what I'm saying? I like that anime. So like when they had that alpha style, it was like a mix between. Oh man, come on, man! I plead the fifth. Yo, coming in at number two. Coming in at number two. Coming in at number two. It's called hentai. No, fucking okay. All right, so coming in at number two, man, that is for my fans. All right, so coming in at number two, Sega Saturn. This was actually my number one, man, but y'all could not agree with me on anything, man. Coming in at number one, man, X-Men versus Street Fighter, bro. Like, look, with X-Men versus Street Fighter, dog. Like, this spawn. This is what gave you Marvel versus Capcom 2, the greatest fighting video game of all time, bro. It came from this game right here. When this game came out, bro, this was like, I ain't going front. This was like before, like me being like my origins with comics and video games going so far back to like pretty much like they're like early. I can't say with comic books because comic books been out long before I was born, but like me growing up with it my whole life. Before there was the movies, before we got to the movies, before we even really got to the video games to a certain point, this was so major. This was the biggest thing announced until the X-Men movie, which led to the Spider-Man movie, which led to the MCU. And I can't forget Blade. Blade actually really started it, really. It was Blade and then it was Spider-Man. But then, those they sold the rights to be able to take a chance on the MCU. So really Iron Man is what was the do or die. You know what I'm saying? That was where they're like, all right, we spent all this money, we gotta sink or swim, So, but it was because they sold the X-Men, it was because of Spider-Man, it was because of Blade that they were able to take those B-roll characters at this point. Because like initially in the 70s and 80s and the for some the 60s when they first came out, they were above the Spider-Man and the X-Men. But over time, Spider-Man became more popular than Fantastic Four and became the new number one selling comic book in Marvel. I'm just giving y'all like a Marvel rundown. But point I'm making, man, this should have been number one, man. I remember when this came out, man. Me and my boy used to fucking walk from our apartment complex all the way to a bowling alley that was, man, it was like an hour walk easy. Hour walk there, hour walk back, damn near every day for a good moment, just playing this game, just to play this game. We'd save all our money through the week, walk up to that bitch on the weekends, and go play that shit. You know what I'm saying? Or right after we get up out of school, it'd be halfway because the school's like half the distance, so it'd take us 30 minutes to walk to school. It's 30-minute distance to walk from the school to there and then walk all the way home. So just like, yo, freaking this was that game, man. Like to hear this announced, like two of your favorite things from two different mediums, like Street Fighter being, and this is another reason why it's always going to be Street Fighter over Mortal Kombat. And Mortal Kombat once again following in Street Fighter steps. They're like, all right, we're gonna jock your idea, and now we're gonna fucking team up with DC, which eliminates the chance of you getting a Marvel versus DC game because now they fucking with the DC shit. So it's just like, man, like. But I mean, I do like those DC versus Mortal Kombat games, but at the same time, X-Men versus Street Fighter coming in at number two. I went on a long tangent with this one, man. This definitely should have been number one, but I ain't too mad because what got number one voted on game was Marvel Superheroes versus Street Fighter, the sequel. You know what I'm saying? Man, I kind of liked the roster on Marvel versus X-Men versus Street Fighter better than on Marvel superheroes versus Street Fighter, to keep it 100. You know what I'm saying? But I think they did add one thing to it. What they did add, you know what? I think they might have added. No, no, no. What they added was they added the assist, I want to say, or they might have had it. I can't recall. It's been a minute, but they added some different type of. They added a layer to it, you know. But this game coming in at number one on the Sega Saturn list, man, with Chun-Li, you got Captain America, man. There was so many good people on this game, man. I mean, I guess what kind of wins it over is they got Doctor Doom on it, you know, got Magneto on it. Well, Magneto's on the other one. I think it got yeah, it got some heavy hitters on this game, but man, I definitely think X-Men versus Street Fighter being the one, it was more impact since it was the one that started it off. You know, had a dope ass roster. There's a couple of dope characters from the X-Men vs. Street Fighter that they took off to put Marvel characters on it on this one. It was just like, damn, like the eyeball nigga. Like, do you really want the eyeball dude instead of Gambit? You know what I'm saying? Like, did we really just take off like, you know, like Juggernaut as a playable character to put on like Blackheart? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are we doing here? But I can't argue with the general masses' choice. This is what everybody voted on in the groups. Thank y'all for y'all participation. Next time, I believe, I don't know which one comes next. I'm gonna have to look. It's either gonna be PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64. I know for a lot of you youngsters, the youngers, gamers, you know, this is probably when you guys jump into the fray, when you guys started playing, that your memory, you know, that you start to at least work good and start to build some, you know. But it's probably where you guys are going to start to jump into the a little bit more. I'm expecting the more votes going forward at this point, because now it's like the 90s babies could jump in. Like, I feel like up to this point, it was kind of like the 80s babies that were like getting, you know, like some of these like the older game systems, but at this point is like where we get into like the new, the, you know, like the current gamer, and then there's like the next generation gamers that are currently playing. So I'm an old head, you know what I'm saying? But thank y'all for tuning into Top 10 Sega Saturn Games. I'm your host, Andre Harris. Make sure y'all go to the Whole FN Show on Facebook. That's my gaming page, where I will post these episodes where you can look back in chronological order from Nintendo to Sega to SNES to Sega CD to Sega Saturn 3DO and etc. etc. I skipped 3DO because I realized hardly anybody had that. Hardly anybody had the Sega Saturn. I had my top 10 because I had both of those systems. I realized a lot of people didn't have the Sega Saturn either. You know what I'm saying? But again, the only one I didn't do an episode for is Neo Geo, because I don't have a Neo Geo, never played the Neo Geo. So I don't want to speak on something I didn't have the experience of playing firsthand. But thank y'all for y'all time, man. I hope y'all have a great day. Happy Valentine's Day. And y'all take care. Stay safe. Peace.